when I walked in, the doors were closed, but you still had some of the regulars who had found their way in and were waiting patiently at the counter. Super. So the genesis of this thali goes back to the late 90s. Actually, even before that, Mavalli Tiffin Rooms used to do dinner parties. They would do these meals with 40 dishes, etc. So originally when they did the meal, it didn't come in a steel thali. They would serve it to you in silver thalis. Even that juice, that grape juice, would be served to you in a silver lote. There's a saying in English, if walls could speak. Just imagine if the walls of this fabled 100-year-old Bengaluru culinary institution could speak. The conversations it would have been witness to in its existence of a century that saw two world wars, the independence of India and its rise, the evolution of a quiet Bengaluru to its bustling and energetic modern avatar, and more. Hi folks, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Review here on Food Lovers TV. This afternoon we've arrived for lunch at Mavalli Tiffin Rooms in Lalbagh. For those of you not familiar with the show yet, well, The Review is a brand new show where it's just you, me and the food. In the first season of The Review, we are exploring Bengaluru restaurants from the 90s that were a special outing back then and are still relevant today. I hope you've caught our previous episodes as well. In case you haven't, I'm going to link them in the description below. Do subscribe and hit the bell to stay notified on every episode that we post. When I moved to Bengaluru in the 90s, if you wanted to treat a guest to a very special vegetarian meal, it inevitably meant an outing to Mavalli Tiffin Rooms here in Lalbagh for their Oota, which encompassed culinary influences from South Canara, Mysuru and Bengaluru. And that's what we're going to taste today, the Mavalli Tiffin Rooms lunch Oota here in Bengaluru. Still relatively quiet because it's only about 12:30 and customers are just coming in for lunch. In fact, when I walked in, the doors were closed, but you still had some of the regulars who had found their way in and were waiting patiently at the counter to collect their tokens for the lunch Oota here. Super. So the R in MTR refers to rooms as in Mavalli Tiffin Rooms, and that is the labyrinth of rooms that one can dine here at the original Lalbagh Road outpost. So I've taken for myself one of the innermost rooms. I was hoping for some peace and quiet as we shot this lunch, but that's not going to happen because you can already hear the bustle of customers tucking into the Oota here at this eatery. So I guess that's going to be the constant background score. even as we relish this unta. Speaking of the name, when the place opened in 1924, it was originally called the Brahmin Coffee Club and it would serve coffee and idlis. So in the 50s, one of the founders, Mr. Yagnarayan Maya, decided to travel to Europe to visit some of the restaurants there and also bring in some of the best practices. So when he returned, he introduced the concept of sterilization of cups, of plates, and that's something that they follow even today. And also the concept of the open kitchen. So out here in Mavalli Tiffin Rooms, not too many people know this, but anybody can actually walk into the kitchen and see what's happening, see what's cooking, and how things are being cooked. It was also around this time that the name changed to Mavalli Tiffin Rooms. In 1960, the restaurant moved to its present location on Lalbagh Road and soon became a landmark for its tasty, nourishing vegetarian fare. Thank you very much. Yes. So the steel thali has arrived, which means that the rest of the food is going to be here soon too.
Juice.
Any juice? Grape juice. Kosambari. So the thali has two nice puffy puris. We've got some semia paisam. We've got a kosambari with some cucumber, green gram, coconut, etc. We've got a sagu for the puri, bendekai palya. We've got a chutney because there'll be a dosa that will come soon, some uppinkai, also some date halwa. To begin with, you get a glass of the traditional grape juice. Just the perfect balance of that slight sourness and the sweetness. We've got the mini masala dosa that is served during lunch. If you order for the regular dosa, you will also get that. But if it's part of the lunch meal, well, it's a mini dosa and one vade. I figured one thing, that this format is not great when you are doing things like a thali, because by the time you get your b-rolls, etc., that puri, which was puffy when it came in, has settled into that plate. That palya has a little bit of the holi that I'm tasting, perhaps some tamarind that goes into it. The bendekai is moist and slippery, yet has retained its crunch. Some of that sagu now. I'm not sure there's some fennel that goes into it. I'm tasting something very aromatic. Perhaps it's a spice mix that goes into it, and now I can also taste the heat of some chili in that. That's a sagu that's extremely tasty. The long beans on that, onions, carrots. That crunch of that dosa. There's just a smidgen of palya in that because I don't want to fill you with the dosa. So it's a very compact dosa, and therefore even the palya, just a dollop that's placed on it after that dosa is roasted on both sides on the anchu with some tuppa. So I'm almost done with that palya, and therefore I'll have to move to that chutney. I can taste the fresh flavors of the mint. If you are visiting here and not able to make time to come to Mavalli Tiffin Rooms in the morning, you can also come here during lunch, because in addition to this thali, you'll also get some of the other tiffin items like the masala dosa, the rave idli, etc. I like that crunch of the dosa. Also that slight aromatic warmth that comes from the green chutney that's smeared on the inside of the dosa. When towards the edges, the dosa is nice, crispy and crackling. So the genesis of this thali goes back to the late 90s. Actually, even before that, Mavalli Tiffin Rooms used to do dinner parties in the evening. They would do these meals with 40 dishes, etc. But eventually the family decided to evolve that into these meals. So originally when they did the meal, it didn't come in a steel thali. They would serve it to you in silver thalis. Even that juice, that grape juice, would be served to you in a silver lote. But a couple of problems they encountered. One, they realized that the silver thalis weigh nearly a kilo. So it was impossible for servers to scurry up and down with those thalis. That made way for stainless steel thalis. When it came to the silver tumblers, they realized soon that they were missing tumblers whenever they would do an inventory. And therefore, sadly, the silver tumblers have made way for steel tumblers in which you are now served your grape juice. Bit of that kosambri, the cucumber, green gram, coconut. But there's a bit of sweetness that I'm tasting in that lentil. So perhaps that's from the coconut. Delicious. Coconut has released some of its waters and that's lending a certain sweetness even to the lentils. It was such a happy sight being down in the kitchen, watching the buttrus making preparations to serve customers for lunch. I find it almost therapeutic when you're out there watching the dosa master ladle the batter onto the tawa, roast the dosas, ladle some tuppa over that, wait till it roasts and then flip it over, then add the chutney, also the palya, and wait only for a few minutes before it's ready to be folded and heaped onto trays to be rushed to waiting customers. And even watching the puri fry. I'm going to go for some of that paisa, the shavige paisa, the vermicelli paisa. First bite and I got lucky. A bit on a toasted godambi also serves as a cooling interlude, even as I transition from the puri, dosa, sagu, palya to some of the rice preparations that will follow. The flavors that I've tasted on this thali, the seasoning is just perfect. It's not too spicy, not too salty. Like they say in Kannada, uppu kara perfect. That's the sort of flavors that I'm tasting. And I think that's a testament to their buttrus, to their cooks who've been working with them for decades on end. On that note, some of that palak pakoda. I love the fact that you have some caramelized onions glistening on the surface. Inside I'm tasting the gram flour and the flavor of the onions. I'm not sure if there's some acidity that goes into this. Of course, this pakoda has been fried some time ago and kept, and therefore it's not as lively as it perhaps would have been emerging from the oil. I think I bit into a sliver of green chili there. I can certainly feel a tingle of spice on the left side of my tongue. I'm just imagining what that 40-dish meal may have been like in the 80s. If any of you have had the opportunity or the privilege to taste that, do post in the comments below and share with us what that experience was all about. And now we have the chitranna, the lemon rice. I saw the goju for this being prepared downstairs. Slivers of translucent onions. I can see some curry leaf in there. Some peas as well that have probably been tossed in that oil. And it's served to you with a white chutney. There's a coconut chutney. And the seasoning of some mustard. There's also some urad dal that goes into the tempering. That's a delicious chutney. That slight tinge of tartness and then that sweet translucent crunch of the onions. And as a chitranna that's also very moist. Moist as it has soaked up the moisture from the sauteed onions. And now I'm tasting the slight prick of some green chili somewhere in that ogarne. And I guess that's where that chutney comes handy. That chutney will help cool down my palate from the prick of that green chili. Fresh is the chutney. All the dishes that I tasted, to be honest, not one dish I can fault here. If I have to nitpick, I could say yes, the vade should be served hot. But I guess when you're serving hundreds of customers, multiple dishes, perhaps about 20 or so, and then the hot puris, the dosa and all of that, I guess it's difficult to manage that too. That chitranna is delicious. As you can see, I've cleaned up my plate entirely. I've left that date halwa for dessert at the end.
Bisi Bele.
Bisi Bele, thank you. Thank you very much. ಅಷ್ಟು ಬೇಡ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಬಿಸಿ ಇದೆ ಬಿಸಿ ಬೇಳೆ ಬಾತ್ ಬಿಸಿ ಇದೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಸಿಬೇಳೆ ಬಾತ್ ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೂಂದಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಲ್ಲ, ರಾಯ್ತಾ ಸಿಕ್ಕತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೆಷಾಲಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ MTR. ಯು ಗೆಟ್ ಅ ನೈಸ್ ಮೊಸರು ಬಜ್ಜಿ ವಿತ್ ದಿ ಆನಿಯನ್, ಸಮ್ ಕೊರಿಯಾಂಡರ್ ಇನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್. So well, that's the combination, the Bisi Bele Bath, Raita, Pappadam. Nice and crisp. I will savor that bisi bele bath first just by itself. Plenty of veggies in that. I can see some beans there, some carrots, some shallots too. So that's a bisi bele bath that's fortified with a bunch of stuff. And of course the spices that go when the lentils and rice are being cooked. I can taste the slight granular flavors of the spice mix in this. I'm definitely tasting the cumin, coriander. I'm also tasting a hint of sweetness that probably comes from some bella. The flavor that comes from the spicing from the masala here is a sort that seizes hold of your palate. It's not mild in the least. I think somewhere I'm also biting into a bit of kai, perhaps some coconut that goes into this. And if you find this a tad too robust for your palate, well, that's where that masuru bhaji, that raita comes in to calm things down with that cucumber and niruli. And now with some happada. So those of you who may not know what a bisi bele bath is, well, bisi refers to hot in Kannada, bele is the lentils and bath is the rice. I'm putting it in very simple terms, but it's a dish that's extremely complex in its making. That spice mix is made ahead and every spice mix will have its own nuances. And out here, it's also the texture. I think the texture of the spice mix that holds on to your palate and thereby providing that flavor punch, that kick, as you say it. I'm also tasting that sweetness that's coming from the onions, having submerged my palate in that bisi bele bath. That onion is providing sweet cooling respite. This is the coarse sambar or the cabbage sambar. These are the sort of vegetables that my mom would try very hard to get me to eat when I was growing up. But here we are, decades later, enjoying that coarse sambar here at MTR. The cabbage yields with a soft pulpy crunch, having drunk up all the flavor of that sambar. It's gentle, warming, perhaps some byadgi mensankai that has gone into the dish. So the influences that you will find here are a combination of South Kannada, be it in the dosa, the sagu. The Bengaluru influence comes with the bisi bele bath, things like the chitranna. You know, when that thali comes to you initially, it seems quite Spartan. There's a paisa, there's some kosambri, there's some sagu, palya, chutney, and you've got two puris. Later that date halwa comes in. And you're wondering, is that all? At times like that, you may be tempted to ask for more puri. Then the dosa comes in. You may be tempted to ask for another dosa. But then you also have some of these other rice and sambar, chitranna, masaranna combinations that troop out later. So the key to enjoying your meal here is also to pace yourself and not tasting some of that tuppa through that sambar. Also a good time to draw some of the uppinkai just to perk up my palate. I must also warn you here, if you want to do full service to this uta, don't plan for something too active after lunch. Because I think the best way to enjoy this uta is not just while eating it, but also to lull yourself into a half comatose state while you are relaxing from the effects of this meal. Also bring some of the leftover bendekai to the mix. Rasam rice. Bisi there. The only way to enjoy rasam in my books is to drown your anna in that rasam. There should be more rasam than anna. Mix it up nicely. The flavor of the cumin, quite obvious to the palate and also to the sight. And the scent of the cumin, nice and sour. Crush some of the happada into the rasam. And also some uppinkai, just to bring an element of heat. That's nice and sour and spicy now. That happada also helps drain the excess rasam from the thali, making sure you get all the flavors and you have as much of the rasam that your fingers can hold on to. Well, our last rice course is here, the mosaranna. And right away I got a piece of the godambi. That's a warm mosaranna, not a cold mosaranna. Plenty of godambi. The flavor is led largely by the toasted curry leaf. Touch of sourness of the mosaru. And then the toasty notes of the curry leaf. I think I'm also tasting in this some hingu. Hingu I'm also tasting the flavor of some asafoetida in that mosaranna. I think the last time I must have eaten this meal was probably a few months ago. But then you're coming with people and you're enjoying the food, you're talking to people, and your attention is not only on the food. But when I'm doing this, all my attention is on the food, and therefore my receptors too are wide awake. I don't think I ever realized there was that pinch, that touch of hingu that goes into this mosaranna. Delicious. Whenever you find things like curry leaf in your plate, make sure you don't keep it to the side. There's a reason why that's gone into your plate. Not just to infuse its flavors, but it can also be a tasty bite. So good. The sort of meal where it's mandatory to lick your fingers once you're done.
Fruit salad with ice cream.
Fruit salad with ice cream and beda. Wonderful. The way to finish your meal here is with some fruit salad and ice cream, and they also give you a beda. I think this is a sweet pan, but I also have a dessert from before, which is a date halwa, which I haven't gotten to yet. I think we'll begin first with the fruit salad and ice cream. That fruit salad ice cream is quite literally the cherry on top of a rather indulgent but delicious meal here in Mavalli Tiffin Rooms. The grape also has a pith in that. So the ice cream that this goes with is made by MTR. They call it the American flavor, but it's a cross between vanilla and butterscotch in terms of its flavor notes. Let's make tracks for that date halwa. That halwa is quite gutty. Quite sweet as well. You've got that earthy flavor of the dates, but there's some milk solids that's gone into it. Plenty of tuppa as well that you're tasting in that. That's a little too sweet for my palate. I'm going to return to that fruit salad. A light, fruity, fitting end to your Uta here at MTR, at Mavalli Tiffin Rooms in Lalbagh. To me personally, a meal at MTR, especially the Lalbagh outpost, isn't just about the food. But I think it's a great opportunity to take a peek into a 100-year-old culinary tradition. Because truly, how many places can you visit in this day and age that go back 100 years? That go back 100 years and are still absolutely relevant in the food that they have to offer. I've enjoyed this thali, so do scores of diners when they visit Mavalli Tiffin Rooms. So if you want a century-old Uta tradition, definitely find your way to Mavalli Tiffin Rooms here in Lalbagh. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the review. Until the next time, take care, happy eating. Well, that big Uta is for 357 rupees plus tax. That certainly is a sort of meal that will fill you happily and also leave you sated up until dinner. Truth be told, typically after this you don't need dinner. Until the next time, take care. Bye.